This video will explain the various note values that you have in your music, and we're also going to talk about how many beats each note gets. This slide shows the basic note values that we're going to cover in this video. I should also point out that for each note that we have, there's also a matching rest. And the name of the rest matches the name of the note. So if this is a whole note worth 4 beats, this is also a whole rest worth 4 beats. And we have half note, half rest, note, quarter rest. And then down here we have a single eighth note and an eighth rest. One of the things we can use to help us understand note values is fractions. So here we have a whole note and a delicious looking pizza, if you like pepperoni pizza. And I want you to think of the whole note as filling a whole bar of music in 4/4 time. And think of that whole note as being like a whole pizza. That whole pizza is like a bar of music. So that whole note is going to take up a whole bar of music, and it's worth 4 beats. In this slide, we have a half note, and the half note is worth 2 beats, and 2 is half of 4. And if we think of fractions, the fraction for a half is 1 over 2. Which is a half. And the half note gets its name because it takes up half of the space of a bar in 4/4 time, or it's half of a whole note, because 2 is half of 4. 2 beats, half of 4 beats. In this slide, we have a quarter note, and the fraction for a quarter is 1 over 4. And a quarter note is equal to 1 beat. And it would take 4 quarter notes to equal a whole note. Or it would take 4 of this size of piece of pizza to equal a whole pizza. In this slide, we have a single eighth note, and the fraction for an eighth is 1 over 8. And a single eighth note is worth half of a beat in music. And we would need 8 of these pieces of pizza to equal a whole pizza. So all of the names of these notes are really based on the fractions of a whole. Another way of writing eighth notes is to connect them with a beam at the top. This line up here is called the beam. And when we have 2 eighth notes together, they will equal 1 beat, because each one of these eighth notes is a half, and 1 half plus another half is going to equal a whole beat. Sometimes you'll see these eighth notes written in groups of 4, so you'll see 4 of them together, and the beam will connect all 4 across the top. This slide sort of reviews everything that I've talked about so far, and it's going to show you the note name and how many of each note we can fit into a bar of 4/4 time, a whole bar. So for a whole note, we can fit 1 into a bar of 4/4 time, because the maximum we can have is 4 beats in a bar, and a whole note is worth 4 beats, and that's like the whole pizza. A half note is only worth 2 beats, which is half of a whole note. And we could fit 2 half notes into the same amount of space into a bar of music that we could a whole note. Now quarter notes are just worth 1 beat each, so we could fit 4 of those into a bar of 4/4 time. And eighth notes are worth half each, so each one of these is worth a half. And all of those halves are going to equal 4 beats. They're going to add up to 4. And over here on the right, you can see all the different fractions of that pizza. We can have we can divide that pizza up into 8 parts, or that whole note up into eighth notes. We can divide it up into 4 parts, or quarter notes for a whole note. We can divide it in half, and then we would get half notes in music. Or the whole pizza is like the whole note. It's just the whole thing, not broken up. In this last slide, I've written a basic rhythm in music made up of some of the note values that I've talked about in this video. So we have a half note, which is going to be worth 2 beats. We have a quarter note, which is going to be worth 1 beat. And each of these eighth notes are worth half of a beat. Now, if you add up all of those numbers together, they're going to equal 4 beats. And 4 beats is the magic number. That's how many beats we need in a bar of 4/4 time. Because this top number here is telling us that. That says I can have 4 beats in a bar, no more and no less. And if I was to take this pizza and put all of these pieces together, then we would get an entire pizza. I can just put that in there. Oops. So all of those together are going to add up to the whole pizza. And that is sort of how the note names are named. They're always in relation to the whole note. Hopefully this has been helpful. Once you understand how many beats each note value gets, please go on and watch the video that explains how we count the beats in music so that we know when to play each note in our music.